Imagine yourself in the pre-Civil War American South, in the verdant state of Georgia, where vast cotton plantations stretch to the horizon like a rippling green sea beneath a clear blue sky. Here, enslaved field hands still toil under the scorching midday sun, while the ladies of society sit on veranda porches, sipping iced tea and discussing the latest fashions, engagements, and marriages. Life moves at a leisurely pace, governed by tradition and rigid social customs. At the heart of this opulent southern life lies the sprawling Tara plantation, owned by Mr. Gerald O'Hara, an Irish immigrant who built his fortune on cotton farming. Here lives his spoiled daughter, Scarlett O'Hara, a young woman in the bloom of youth, combining breathtaking beauty with a rebellious spirit. Scarlett was the object of everyone's attention, with her stunning beauty, emerald green eyes that sparkled like gems, a smooth white complexion like rose petals, and dark black hair that flowed like a cascade of night. She knew she was beautiful and skillfully used this beauty to attract the attention of men who flocked to her like moths to a flame. Scarlett adored social life and loved being the center of attention at parties and gatherings. She loved dancing, singing, and conversation, filling every space with her captivating presence. But her heart was set on one man, Ashley Wilkes, the handsome heir to a neighboring plantation called 12 Oaks. Ashley represented everything Scarlett desired in a man: handsomeness, gallantry, and refinement. He was tall, with gray eyes that hinted at deep intelligence, and golden blonde hair that shimmered in the sunlight. Ashley was the epitome of a Southern gentleman, but he was different from Scarlett. He was quiet and contemplative, loved books and poetry, and wasn't swept away by the superficialities of bustling social life. He preferred spending his time reading in his quiet library or contemplating the beauty of the nature around him. Ashley was engaged to another woman, Melanie Hamilton, his cousin, a kind and gentle girl, but in Scarlett's eyes she was dull and boring. Melanie was known for her kindness and tenderness, but she lacked the captivating charm that Scarlett possessed. One day, before the outbreak of the Civil War, a grand barbecue was held at the Wilkes plantation, celebrating Ashley's engagement to Melanie. Scarlett was radiant in a beautiful green dress that accentuated her beauty and femininity, and she secretly hoped to catch Ashley's attention at the last moment and change his mind. But she heard news that struck her like lightning. Ashley would announce his engagement to Melanie that day. Scarlett felt intense anger and deep despair. How could Ashley choose Melanie over her? She decided to do anything to prevent this marriage. During the party, Scarlett tried to approach Ashley and express her love for him, but he gently rejected her, assuring her that he loved Melanie and that they were well suited. In a moment of anger and despair, Scarlett lost control of herself, slapped Ashley across the face, and then ran crying to the house library, where she hid behind the curtains. At that moment, a strange figure appeared, someone no one had paid attention to, a man with piercing eyes and a cynical smile. This was Rhett Butler, the handsome adventurer with a tarnished reputation. Rhett had overheard Scarlett and Ashley's conversation and was watching her with a strange interest, as if he saw something in her that others didn't. This first meeting between Scarlett and Rhett marked the beginning of a complex relationship that would witness many twists and turns over the years. And while Scarlett was immersed in her disappointment, the winds of war began to blow across the South, portending a radical change that would affect everything and threaten to turn Scarlett's beautiful world upside down. As the winds of war swept across the South, Scarlett remained oblivious to the magnitude of the catastrophe that would befall her world. She was still a prisoner of her illusory love for Ashley, unable to see the truth that lay before her eyes. But everything soon changed. The Civil War erupted, transforming the tranquil Southern life into an unbearable hell. Men departed for the front, leaving behind women and children to face an uncertain fate. Lavish parties turned into somber gatherings, and news of the dead and wounded became the constant topic of conversation. Atlanta, the vibrant city that once teemed with life, became a center of conflict, and Scarlett witnessed firsthand the ravages and destruction of war. Women volunteered to aid the wounded, and Scarlett played her part in providing support and assistance. But her heart bled for Ashley, who had gone to fight in the ranks of the Confederate Army. In the midst of these events, Rhett Butler reappeared, like a shadowy figure watching Scarlett from afar. Rhett saw what others did not. He saw Scarlett's strength and stubbornness, and he knew she would survive this ordeal. After the fall of Atlanta, Scarlett was forced to flee with Melanie and her newborn son on a difficult and dangerous journey back to Tara. Upon her arrival, she found the plantation in a deplorable state, her mother gone, and she was left to care for her two younger sisters and her distraught father. Here, Scarlett's true strength emerged. She vowed to do anything to rebuild Tara and protect her family from poverty and starvation. She worked in the cotton fields, performing tasks she never imagined she would do. She disregarded social conventions and did what she deemed necessary for survival. During this period, Scarlett's true character was revealed. A strong, practical woman, capable of adapting to the harshest conditions. She was no longer the spoiled girl living in a world of illusions, but a strong woman who took responsibility and faced life with courage. Amid these difficult circumstances, Scarlett married Frank Kennedy, her younger sister's fiancé, out of a need for money to save Tara from ruin. Then, after his death, she married Rhett Butler, who had always been present in her life, watching her with a strange interest. Her marriage to Rhett was initially a marriage of convenience, but it soon evolved into a complex relationship filled with love, hate, and passion. Rhett loved Scarlett in his own way, but she was blind to this love, a prisoner of her illusory love for Ashley. Scarlett became a successful businesswoman, managing a lumber mill and earning a great deal of money. But she was not happy. Her relationship with Rhett was strained and full of conflict. Rhett was a strong and independent man, and he would not tolerate Scarlett's arrogance and stubbornness. Scarlett had a daughter with Rhett, whom she named Bonnie Blue, and she loved her dearly. But Bonnie died in a tragic accident, further complicating the relationship between Scarlett and Rhett. After Bonnie's death, Rhett could no longer bear to stay with Scarlett and decided to leave, leaving her with his famous words, "Frankly, my dear, I don't give a damn." At that moment, Scarlett realized the truth of her feelings. She realized that she had never loved Ashley and that she had loved Rhett all along. Scarlett returned to Tara, determined to win Rhett back. She knew it would not be easy, but she was prepared to do anything. Thus ended part of Scarlett's story, the story of a girl who faced great changes in her life, from the bliss of the pre-war era to the harshness of its aftermath. A story of a complex love, a struggle for survival, and a journey toward self-discovery. As the American Civil War intensified, Atlanta was no longer the bustling southern city teeming with life and celebrations. The city transformed into a beehive of activity, working day and night to support the war effort. Wounded soldiers poured in from the battlefields, and makeshift hospitals overflowed with their groans and pain. The women of Atlanta became involved in aiding the wounded, and Scarlett played her part in providing support and assistance. But her heart bled for Ashley, who had gone to fight in the ranks of the Confederate Army. She received few and brief letters from him, barely reassuring her of his condition. She imagined Ashley on the battlefields, facing death at every moment, and this image filled her with terror and anxiety. Amid this atmosphere charged with fear and anticipation, Rhett Butler appeared and disappeared like a shadowy figure. Rhett was not an enthusiast of the war. Rather, he saw it as a certain ruin for the South. He believed that the North was stronger and better equipped, and that the South was heading towards inevitable defeat. He did not hide these views. On the contrary, he expressed them frankly and bluntly, which made him an unwelcome figure in Southern social circles. But Rhett did not care about the opinions of others. He was pursuing his own interests. He traded in contraband goods and made a fortune from the suffering of others. He saw the war as an opportunity for wealth and did not hesitate to exploit it. But behind the mask of indifference and impudence that Rhett wore, he harbored a special admiration for Scarlett. He saw in her strength, stubbornness, and an unbreakable spirit. He saw in her something different from the rest of the Southern women, who lived in a world of illusions and outdated traditions. He saw in her a real woman, capable of facing life with all its difficulties and challenges. In return, Scarlett looked at him with a mixture of disdain and curiosity. She saw him as a rude man who did not adhere to traditions, but at the same time she felt a strange attraction towards him, an attraction she could not fully understand. She felt that he understood her in a way that others did not, and that he saw aspects in her that she did not know about herself. Over time, the siege of Atlanta intensified. The city began to suffer from a severe shortage of food and medicine, and the bombing became constant day and night. The residents lived in constant fear, waiting for the moment of death at any instant. The city turned into a ghost town, where sadness and fear prevailed everywhere. Scarlett lived in double anxiety for Ashley at the front, and anxiety for herself and her family in besieged Atlanta. She tried to be strong for the sake of others, but from within, she felt fear and despair creeping into her heart. She wished that this whole nightmare would end and that life would return to normal. But she knew that this was impossible. Everything had changed, and the South would never be the same again. With the fall of Atlanta, there was no longer a safe haven for its residents. The city was transformed into a mass of fire and smoke, with flames rising to the sky and black smoke shrouding everything, even the sun disappearing behind this dense cover. The smell of fire filled the air, mixed with the scent of gunpowder and death. The sounds of explosions and collapsing buildings echoed everywhere, creating a symphony of horror and chaos. Amid this inferno, Scarlett found herself facing only one option: escape. She had no time for hesitation or fear. She had to act quickly to save herself, Melanie, who was still weak after giving birth, Ashley's newborn son, and the loyal servant Prissy. In that moment of despair, Rhett Butler appeared as an unexpected savior. Rhett had no intention of staying in besieged Atlanta. Rather, he saw that his opportunity for wealth lay elsewhere, far from war and destruction. He believed that the South had lost the war and that staying meant death or poverty. But despite this, he could not leave Scarlett to face her fate alone. There was a mysterious and strong bond between them, a bond that transcended personal interests and difficult circumstances. Perhaps it was admiration for her strength and stubbornness, or perhaps it was a kind of hidden love that he had not yet admitted to himself. Rhett provided Scarlett with a carriage and a horse, the only means of transportation he could obtain in those chaotic conditions. Obtaining this carriage and horse was an adventure in itself, as Rhett had risked his life to enter the besieged city and purchase them from a soldier. The escape was not easy. The roads were filled with fleeing soldiers from both sides, highwaymen who exploited the chaos to loot and plunder what remained of people's property, in addition to those fleeing the fires who were looking for any safe place to take refuge. Every moment carried a new danger, and every turn revealed a scene more terrifying than the last. The carriage set off on a perilous journey, driven by Scarlett with extreme caution, while Rhett sat beside her, holding his pistol ready for any emergency. Melanie, Her son and Prissy sat in the back, frightened and terrified. Scarlett looked back at Atlanta burning behind them, feeling deep sadness for the city that had once teemed with life and was now reduced to ashes. She remembered her beautiful days in Atlanta, the parties, dances, and social gatherings, and felt as if she were watching a dream evaporate before her eyes. The journey to Tara was a true ordeal. Scarlett witnessed with her own eyes the ravages of war and the destruction it left behind. Corpses were scattered along the roadside, some of soldiers in uniform, others of innocent civilians. Houses and farms were burned and destroyed, with only charred black skeletons remaining. The smell of death and smoke filled the air, choking the breath and causing nausea. Scarlett felt terror and despair creeping into her heart, but she tried hard to be strong for Melanie and her son, who depended on her completely. She tried to hide her fear and anxiety and show them that she was capable of protecting them. During the journey, they faced many difficult and frightening situations. They were attacked by highwaymen who tried to steal the carriage and its contents, but Rhett managed to repel them with his pistol. They miraculously survived an artillery bombardment when a shell landed near them but did not harm them. They saw horrifying scenes of people suffering from hunger, disease, and death, scenes that Scarlett could never forget. All these scenes hardened Scarlett's heart and made her more determined to survive. She was no longer the spoiled girl who cared about appearances and traditions, but a practical and strong woman who thought only about how to stay alive and save her family. This journey was a harsh lesson for Scarlett, a lesson that taught her the meaning of war and the meaning of survival in a world changed forever. When Scarlett arrived at Tara, she found only ruin and destruction. It was not the vast green plantation where she had grown up, but rather a barren, scorched land, bearing the marks of the harsh war. The main house was damaged, but still standing, a silent witness to what had befallen the family. But the greatest shock was the loss of her mother, Ellen, who had been a symbol of strength and steadfastness in Scarlett's life. She had departed, leaving an unfillable void and a heavy burden on her daughter's shoulders. Mr. O'Hara, Scarlett's father, lived in another world, unaware of what had happened to them, wandering around the plantation and muttering incomprehensible words. Her two younger sisters, Sue Ellen and Corrine, lived in a state of fear and despair, not knowing what to do. Amid this devastation, Scarlett stood on the ruins of her plantation, feeling the weight of responsibility falling upon her. She looked at the scorched earth, her ruined home, and her broken family, and felt as if all her hopes had evaporated. But deep within her heart, a spark of stubbornness and strength ignited. She remembered the oath she had made to herself before leaving Atlanta. "I won't let them beat me." She raised her fist to the sky and swore in a loud voice, filled with determination and defiance. "I won't let them beat me. I'm going to survive, and I'm going to rebuild Tara, and I'll never be hungry again, and I won't let my family go hungry." This oath was a crucial turning point in Scarlett's life. She finally abandoned the image of the spoiled girl living in a world of illusions and transformed into a strong and stubborn woman, determined to survive no matter the circumstances. Scarlett immediately began working to rebuild Tara. She worked in the cotton fields, performing tasks she never imagined she would do. She worked from dawn to dusk, under the scorching sun, her hands dirty with mud, and her back aching from hard work. She disregarded social conventions and did what she deemed necessary for survival. She sold what remained of the family's possessions and tried to obtain any food or money. She dealt with the Yankee soldiers who roamed the area and tried to protect her family from them. She used all her intelligence and cunning to persuade them to leave her alone. Scarlett faced countless difficulties. The land was barren, the crops were meager, and the supplies were scarce. She suffered from hunger, fatigue, and exhaustion, but she never gave up. She knew that she had to be strong for her family, and that she had to preserve Tara at any cost. Tara was the symbol of her survival, a symbol of the past that she refused to lose. Tara was the only hope she had left in this harsh new world. In this period, Scarlett's true character emerged, a strong, practical woman, capable of adapting to the harshest conditions. She was no longer the spoiled girl living in a world of illusions, but a strong woman who took responsibility and faced life with courage. Scarlett was learning harsh lessons about life, lessons she would not have learned in her old world. She was learning the meaning of hard work, the meaning of responsibility, and the meaning of survival. She was learning that life is not always fair, and that she had to fight for what she wanted. After the oath Scarlett made on the ruins of Tara, there was no room for hesitation or despair. She had to act, to do anything to rebuild her life and the lives of her family in this harsh new world left behind by the war. Scarlett didn't know much about hard work. She had grown up in a spoiled environment where servants and enslaved people did everything. But now, there was no other choice but to abandon this luxurious life and face reality with all its difficulties. Scarlett began working in the cotton fields, alongside the few workers who remained on the plantation. Her hands became swollen from the hard work, and her back ached from bending for long hours under the scorching sun. She didn't care about her appearance or the opinions of others. Her only goal was to earn enough money to feed her family. She sold what remained of the family's possessions, jewelry, furniture, and clothing, to get some cash. She dealt with the Yankee soldiers who roamed the area and tried to protect her family from them. She used all her intelligence and cunning to persuade them to leave her alone, and sometimes she resorted to begging or even lying if necessary. Scarlett faced countless difficulties. The land was barren, the crops were meager, and the supplies were scarce. She suffered from hunger, fatigue, and exhaustion, but she never gave up. She knew that she had to be strong for her family, and that she had to preserve Tara at any cost. Tara was the symbol of her survival, a symbol of the past that she refused to lose. Tara was the only hope she had left in this harsh new world. Amid these difficult circumstances, Scarlett began to think of other ways to earn money. She heard that there were some business opportunities in Atlanta, which was slowly recovering from the effects of the war. Atlanta was gradually coming back to life as people began rebuilding their homes and shops. There was a desperate need for everything, from lumber to clothing to food. Scarlett realized that this was a golden opportunity for her, and that she could exploit these conditions to make financial gains. Scarlett decided to return to Atlanta, hoping to find a way to rebuild her family's fortune. She knew that this task would not be easy, but she was determined to succeed. Scarlett knew that she had to use all her intelligence, beauty, and willpower to achieve her goals. She was prepared to do anything, even if it meant breaking some social rules. She knew that survival was for the fittest, and that she had to be strong to survive in this harsh new world. This journey was the beginning of a new chapter in Scarlett's life, a chapter full of challenges and difficulties, but also full of opportunities and possibilities. Scarlett was about to enter a new world, the world of business and trade, a world she didn't know much about, but she was determined to learn it and excel in it. Scarlett was ready to begin her fight for survival, for Tara, and for herself. After Scarlett spent a difficult time at Tara, desperately trying to rebuild the plantation and care for her family amidst ruin and poverty, she realized that the only solution to save them lay in returning to Atlanta. The city was slowly regaining its breath, and people were beginning to rebuild their lives. Scarlett heard about new business opportunities on the horizon and saw this as her last chance to save her family from the clutches of poverty. Returning to Atlanta was not an easy decision. The city held painful memories for her, memories of war, destruction, and loss. But Scarlett was not going to let these memories deter her from her goal. She was determined to succeed and to do anything for her family. The return journey to Atlanta was completely different from the escape. There were no fires, bombings, or fleeing soldiers. The roads were relatively quiet, but they were filled with the traces of war. The destroyed houses and farms on the side of the road were witnesses to the devastation left by the war. Scarlett arrived in Atlanta to find the city in a state of constant change. Some buildings had been rebuilt, while others were still ruins. People were trying hard to restore their normal lives, but the effects of the war were still evident everywhere. In Atlanta, Scarlett began looking for work or business opportunities. She didn't know much about the business world, but she was a quick learner and intelligent. She began contacting some merchants and businessmen in the city and tried to understand how things worked. It wasn't easy. Scarlett faced many challenges and obstacles. She was met with rejection and ridicule at times, but she did not give up. She used all her charm and intelligence to convince others of her abilities. During this period, Scarlett met Frank Kennedy, her sister Sue Ellen's fiancé. Frank managed a small lumber mill and seemed like a kind and upright man. Scarlett saw in Frank a good opportunity to achieve her goals. She didn't love him, but she saw him as a means of escaping poverty. Scarlett decided to marry him, not out of love, but out of self-interest. This marriage marked the beginning of a new chapter in Scarlett's life, a chapter full of challenges and surprises. Scarlett was entering a new world, the world of business, politics, and society in the post-war period. She was learning harsh lessons about life, lessons she would not have learned in her old world. She was learning that survival is for the fittest and that she had to be strong to survive in this harsh new world. Atlanta at that time was a destroyed city, but it was also a city full of opportunities. It was a city teeming with activity and vitality, where people were trying hard to rebuild their lives and their community. Scarlett was part of this process and was determined to leave her mark on this new world. She knew that the road ahead would not be easy, but she was ready to face any challenge. Scarlett O'Hara, with all her strength, stubbornness, and intelligence, was about to begin a new chapter of her life in devastated Atlanta, a chapter that would change her life and the lives of those around her forever. Scarlett's marriage to Frank Kennedy was not a romantic love story, but rather a practical decision made out of sheer necessity. Tara was in dire financial straits, and Scarlett felt the weight of responsibility towards her family. She knew she had to do anything to save the plantation from ruin, even if it meant marrying a man she didn't love. She knew that Sue Ellen, her younger sister, loved Frank. But Scarlett did not hesitate to take her fiancé from her. She considered her family's survival more important than anything else, even her sister's happiness. Frank Kennedy was a kind and upright man, but he was also a simple and weak-willed man. He did not possess the charm and allure of Ashley or Rhett. He ran a small lumber mill in Atlanta and barely earned enough to support himself. But Scarlett saw in him a good opportunity to achieve her goals. She knew he was a loyal man and would do anything to please her. She planned to use his money and connections to save Tara and rebuild her family's fortune. Frank was unaware of Scarlett's true intentions. He believed she loved him and was happy to marry her. He treated her with respect and kindness and tried to provide her with everything she needed. But Scarlett did not reciprocate his feelings. She considered him merely a means to achieve her goals and did not care about his feelings. She pretended to love and care for him, but her heart was elsewhere. After the marriage, Scarlett began managing the lumber mill with Frank. She was a quick learner and intelligent, and she soon became an expert in business. She used all her charm and wit to persuade customers and close deals. The mill's business began to flourish and Scarlett began to make a lot of money. She used this money to save Tara and pay its debts, and she also began investing in other projects. The lumber mill became a meeting place for businessmen and politicians in Atlanta. Scarlett listened to their conversations and discussions and learned a lot about the world of politics and business in the post-war period. She began to understand how things worked and how she could use this knowledge to achieve more success. Scarlett was learning harsh lessons about life, lessons she would not have learned in her old world. She was learning that money was the real power in this new world, and that she had to be strong and smart to survive. With the flourishing of her business, Scarlett began to regain her place in Atlanta society. She returned to appearing at parties and social gatherings, and began to regain her status as one of the most attractive and famous women in the city. But she was not happy. There was a large void in her heart, a void that neither money nor success could fill. She still thought of Ashley, and she still felt a strange attraction towards Rhett Butler, who still appeared and disappeared in her life as a mysterious and controversial figure. After marrying Frank Kennedy, Scarlett was not content with the role of a traditional wife. She had greater ambitions and a burning desire to restore her family's fortune and save Tara from the clutches of poverty. She saw Frank's lumber mill as a golden opportunity to achieve her goals. She didn't know much about the lumber business, but she was a quick learner, intelligent, and relentlessly determined. Scarlett began to interfere in the management of the mill, despite Frank's reservations, as he preferred that she stay at home. She didn't care about society's opinions or the traditions that dictated that women stay at home. She believed that this was not a time for leisure, but a time for hard work and a struggle for survival. She began to learn everything about the types of wood, their prices, and market relations. She listened to the conversations of merchants and workers and tried to understand how things worked. She was not afraid to ask questions or admit her ignorance. Rather, she considered it an opportunity for learning and development. Scarlett quickly proved that she was not just a pretty face, but a sharp business mind. She had an exceptional ability to negotiate and close deals, and she used all her charm and intelligence to persuade customers. She did not hesitate to use her femininity as a weapon, but she was also careful not to cross the lines that could harm her reputation. She knew how to deal with men in the male-dominated business world, and how to get what she wanted without losing their respect. The lumber mill began to flourish under Scarlett's management. She made bold and innovative decisions, expanding the scope of work and increasing profits. She began attracting new customers, contracting with new suppliers, and entering new projects. Frank was unable to keep up with her ambition and enthusiasm, but he was happy with her success and satisfied with the money she was bringing in. He trusted her completely and let her take full control of the mill. The lumber mill became a meeting place for businessmen and politicians in Atlanta. Scarlett listened to their conversations and discussions and learned a lot about the world of politics and business in the post-war period. She began to understand how things worked and how she could use this knowledge to achieve more success. Scarlett was learning harsh lessons about life, lessons she would not have learned in her old world. She was learning that money was the real power in this new world, and that she had to be strong and smart to survive. With the flourishing of her business, Scarlett began to regain her place in Atlanta society. She returned to appearing at parties and social gatherings, and began to regain her status as one of the most attractive and famous women in the city. But she was not completely happy. There was a large void in her heart, a void that neither money nor success could fill. She still thought of Ashley, and she still felt a strange attraction towards Rhett Butler, who still appeared and disappeared in her life as a mysterious and controversial figure. Rhett watched Scarlett as she transformed into a successful businesswoman, and he saw in her a strength and stubbornness he had never seen before. He knew she would succeed in the business world, but he also knew she would pay a heavy price for this success. After her marriage to Frank Kennedy, Scarlett immersed herself in the business world with all her enthusiasm and ambition. She didn't care about society's opinions or the traditions that dictated women stay at home. Rather, she believed that this was not a time for leisure, but a time for hard work and a struggle for survival. She managed the lumber mill with intelligence and shrewdness, and quickly turned it into a successful and profitable venture. Frank was unable to keep up with her ambition and enthusiasm, but he was happy with her success and satisfied with the money she was bringing in. He trusted her completely and let her take full control of the mill. With the flourishing of her business, Scarlett began to regain her place in Atlanta society. She returned to appearing at parties and social gatherings and began to regain her status as one of the most attractive and famous women in the city. But she was not completely happy. There was a large void in her heart, a void that neither money nor success could fill. She still thought of Ashley, and she still felt a strange attraction towards Rhett Butler, who still appeared and disappeared in her life as a mysterious and controversial figure. Amid this life full of work and success, an unexpected incident occurred that changed the course of Scarlett's life once again. One night, while Frank was returning home, he was ambushed by a group of robbers. Frank was not a strong man or a fighter, and he had no chance to defend himself. Frank was killed in this attack, leaving Scarlett a widow once again and responsible for the lumber mill on her own. Frank's death was a great shock to Scarlett, but she did not collapse. She had learned from her previous experiences how to be strong and face difficulties. She would not allow anything to break her or deter her from her goal. Scarlett decided to continue managing the lumber mill and to prove to everyone that she was capable of succeeding on her own. But Frank's death also caused some problems for Scarlett. Rumors began to spread in the city about her involvement in his murder. Some questioned the way she ran her business, and they accused her of exploiting the women working in her mill. Scarlett knew that she had to be careful and maintain her reputation if she wanted to succeed in the business world. During this period, Rhett Butler reappeared. Rhett had heard about Frank's death and returned to Atlanta to stand by Scarlett. Rhett was not only offering her help, but he was also proposing marriage. Scarlett was in a dilemma. She did not love Rhett, but she knew that he was a strong and rich man, and that marrying him would solve many of her financial and social problems. She also knew that Rhett loved her in his own way, and that he would be a loyal husband to her. Scarlett was faced with a difficult choice. Would she marry Rhett out of self-interest, or would she refuse his offer and face her fate alone? She knew that her decision would change the course of her life forever. She felt that she was standing at a crossroads, and that she had to choose the path that would lead her to her future. She knew that she had to be strong and smart to make the right decision. Following Frank Kennedy's tragic death, Scarlett found herself alone once more, but this time with a heavier burden, managing the thriving lumber business she had built and facing vicious rumors hinting at her possible involvement in her husband's demise. Amidst these trying circumstances, Rhett Butler returned to her life, an unexpected savior, or perhaps a daring gambler seizing an opportunity. Rhett offered not just condolences or sympathy, but a marriage proposal. Again, Rhett's proposal was a stunning surprise to Scarlett. She didn't love him in the traditional sense, feeling none of the youthful passion she had felt for Ashley. However, she held a degree of admiration and respect for him, even a subtle, undeniable attraction. She knew Rhett was a powerful and wealthy man, and their marriage would resolve many of her financial and social problems. It would silence the malicious gossip surrounding her and provide her and her family with the desperately needed protection and financial stability. Yet, Scarlett was hesitant. She feared marrying Rhett would be another mistake, like her marriage to Frank. She dreaded a cold, loveless marriage built solely on convenience. But Rhett knew how to play his hand skillfully. He understood Scarlett's weaknesses and knew how to persuade her. He used all his charm and allure to convince her to marry him, promising her wealth, luxury, and protection, and assuring her of his unwavering devotion. Ultimately, Scarlett succumbed to Rhett's proposal, choosing to take this new gamble. She married Rhett Butler, not for love, but for self-preservation, driven by her need for money, protection, and stability. This marriage marked a new turning point in Scarlett's life, the beginning of a chapter filled with upheavals and challenges. Scarlett moved into Rhett's opulent Atlanta mansion, beginning a life of luxury she had never dreamed of. She wore the finest clothes, dined on the most exquisite food, and attended the most lavish parties. Yet, despite everything, she wasn't truly happy. A void remained in her heart, a void that neither wealth nor luxury could fill. Scarlett's relationship with Rhett was complex and contradictory. Rhett loved her passionately, but he was also keenly aware of her flaws and never hesitated to criticize or mock her. Scarlett admired Rhett's intelligence and strength, but she also resented his bluntness and disregard for others' opinions. They lived in a constant state of conflict, a battle between love and hate, attraction and repulsion. Their marriage was a battlefield where each tried to dominate the other. Following her marriage to Rhett Butler, Scarlett was transported to a world utterly different from any she had known. Leaving behind the ravaged Tara and the modest lumber mill, she entered a realm of extravagant wealth and absolute luxury at Rhett's opulent Atlanta mansion. The mansion was an architectural masterpiece, boasting vast rooms adorned with the finest furniture and artifacts, and sprawling verdant gardens stretching across expansive grounds. Scarlett lived in a style of lavishness she had never dared to dream of, wearing the most exquisite gowns, dining on the most delectable cuisine, and attending the most exclusive social gatherings. Yet, this opulent lifestyle was insufficient to bring Scarlett true happiness. A vast emptiness resided in her heart, a void that neither money nor luxury could fill. She did not love Rhett, feeling none of the ardent passion she had experienced for Ashley in her youth. She considered him merely a means of escaping poverty, a husband who provided her with protection and financial security. Rhett loved Scarlett with a fierce intensity, but he was also acutely aware of her flaws and never hesitated to criticize or mock her. Scarlett admired Rhett's intelligence and strength, but she also loathed his bluntness and disregard for the opinions of others. Scarlett and Rhett's relationship was complex and rife with contradictions. They lived in a constant state of conflict, a struggle between love and hate, between attraction and repulsion. Their marriage was a battleground, where each sought to assert dominance over the other. There was no true harmony between them, only a perpetual undercurrent of tension and mutual suspicion. Amidst this strained atmosphere, Scarlett gave birth to Rhett's daughter, whom they named Bonnie Blue, and Scarlett adored her deeply. Bonnie Blue was a beautiful and vivacious child, filling Scarlett's life with joy and happiness. But even Bonnie Blue could not fill the void in Scarlett's heart or mend the strained relationship between her and Rhett. Rhett doted on his daughter, indulging her every whim. He saw her as his only solace in this troubled marriage. As time passed, the relationship between Scarlett and Rhett deteriorated further. Scarlett still harbored thoughts of Ashley, and a strange attraction towards him persisted. Rhett saw this, and he felt jealousy and resentment. He knew that Scarlett would never love him as she had loved Ashley, and this caused him great pain. The arguments and quarrels between them escalated, and it became clear that their marriage was hurtling towards disaster. Life at Butler's mansion was filled with luxury and extravagance, but it was also saturated with tension, discord, and conflicting emotions. Scarlett lived in a grand mansion, yet she felt like a prisoner within its walls. She felt as though she had lost everything, even herself. It was the beginning of the end for a relationship that had begun as a gamble and was destined to end in disappointment. Following her marriage to Rhett Butler, Scarlett entered a new phase of her life. She moved into his opulent Atlanta mansion, embarking on a life of luxury beyond her wildest dreams. However, this life was not without its challenges. The post-war Southern society was in flux, and Scarlett had to adapt to these changes if she hoped to succeed. The South was no longer the world it had been before the war. The era of vast plantations, enslaved people, and lavish balls was over. Money had become the true measure of success, regardless of lineage or social standing. Scarlett had to learn how to navigate this new society, how to earn people's respect through her wealth and her sharp wit. Scarlett paid little heed to societal opinions or outdated traditions. She did what she deemed necessary to achieve her goals, even if it meant bending or breaking certain social rules. She engaged with businessmen and politicians, ventured into new commercial projects, and amassed considerable wealth. She was considered a powerful and successful woman, but also, in the eyes of some, brash and grasping. Scarlett's relationship with Rhett was complex and full of contradictions. Rhett loved her passionately, yet he was also keenly aware of her flaws and never hesitated to criticize or mock her. Scarlett admired Rhett's intelligence and strength, but she also resented his bluntness and disregard for the opinions of others. They existed in a constant state of tension, a struggle between love and hate, attraction and repulsion. Amidst this life of conflict and challenge, Scarlett gave birth to Rhett's daughter, whom they named Bonnie Blue. Bonnie Blue was a beautiful and joyful child, filling Scarlett's life with happiness. Scarlett adored her daughter, doing everything in her power to bring her joy. But even Bonnie Blue could not fill the emptiness within Scarlett's heart or mend the strained relationship between her and Rhett. Scarlett still thought of Ashley, and a strange attraction towards him lingered. Rhett saw this, and he felt jealousy and resentment. He knew that Scarlett would never love him as she had loved Ashley, and this caused him deep pain. The arguments and quarrels between them intensified, and it became evident that their marriage was heading for ruin. During this time, Scarlett began to realize that money and success were not everything in life. She began to understand the importance of love, family, and true happiness. She began to regret some of her past decisions and started to contemplate her future and her daughter's. Scarlett found herself at a crossroads once again, and she had to choose the path that would lead her to her future. Scarlett was facing a changing society, and she was also facing herself. She was trying to understand who she truly was and what she wanted from life. It was a journey of self-discovery, a journey filled with challenges and surprises. Amidst Scarlett's complicated and turbulent life with Rhett Butler, a new flicker of hope emerged. The birth of their daughter, Bonnie Blue. Bonnie Blue was a captivating child with delicate features and wide azure eyes that resembled a clear sky. She filled Scarlett's life with a joy she had never known before. Scarlett adored her daughter fiercely, doing everything in her power to bring her happiness. Bonnie Blue was the light that illuminated her darkened world, the hope she clung to in the face of every hardship. Rhett loved his daughter with a profound intensity, unlike any he had felt before. He indulged her every whim, trying to compensate for any lack she might feel due to the strained relationship between him and Scarlett. He saw her as his only refuge in this troubled marriage, and Bonnie Blue was the only thing that truly bound him to Scarlett. But even Bonnie Blue's presence could not alter the fundamental nature of Scarlett and Rhett's relationship. Scarlett still thought of Ashley, and a strange attraction towards him persisted. Rhett saw this, and he felt jealousy and resentment. He knew that Scarlett would never love him as she had loved Ashley, and this caused him great pain. The arguments and quarrels between them escalated, and it became clear that their marriage was heading for disaster. Scarlett tried desperately to conceal her true feelings from her daughter, and to provide her with a happy and stable environment. She ensured that Bonnie Blue was surrounded by love and attention, and that she felt no lack. But the constant tension between her and Rhett created an atmosphere of instability in the house, indirectly affecting Bonnie Blue. Bonnie Blue grew into a spoiled child, but she was also a sensitive and intelligent one. She noticed the tension between her parents, and she sensed that something was not right. She loved both her parents, and she wished for them to be happy. Bonnie Blue was a point of light in Scarlett's darkened life, but she was also her weakness. Scarlett feared losing her daughter, and she would do anything to protect her from harm. Bonnie Blue was the only thing that still connected Scarlett to Rhett, but she was also a source of increased tension between them. Bonnie Blue, with her innocent presence, reminded Scarlett of what she had lost and what she could never have. She reminded her of her lost love for Ashley and her failed marriage to Rhett. Bonnie Blue, despite her young age, played a significant role in Scarlett's life, a role that would greatly influence her future.